Oh, sounds like something is going wrong already. We're going to do some preparations, and I ask that everybody be as sober as possible, right? For the risk of sounding like a person who truly did jump out of the bushes yelling, it's coming. Just trying to kind of calm yourselves and hold down. It's a very serious conversation we're going to talk about today. It's not my job to cause anybody to believe, but out of my heart, I do wish to give you warning, a little preparatory time, that you can be prepared and not taken by what you may see coming. It's as simple as that. I'm going to put some things into perspective. It will either confirm the truth within you or not. If you find it truthful, lining up with the Word of God, then utilize it. If you find it ludicrous, not lining up with the Word of God, nor the prophecies of the Father, then throw it away. But in either case, we're going to see drastic changes, both in the earth and in mankind. We will see them. Your entire paradigm, what you know as reality, has been secured for a long time. Everything has stayed stationary in the skies. We keep track of seasons and everything else by atomic time. Things of that nature, constants in science and in formulas. We've been spoiled, really. We've had a time of rest for a long time. The only problems we've absolutely had were problems of war. But the great calamities were held back, far and few in between. So then the knowledge that existed so long ago will be thrust in the faces of many in the days to come. Everybody has to be prepared for this, according to the truth that you can take in. Today we're going to discuss preparations for the second wave, what the second wave is, things that have been happening on the earth indicating massive changes that are taking place. I'm not here to connect the dots with anybody else's research, but I'm only here to tell you exactly what I know of myself. It does go with the darkness, the deep darkness that's coming back upon the face of the earth. So then darkness must be defined, and you must be defined. I tell you this, you guys familiar with the book of Revelation and other texts, you know that something will come upon the face of the earth from below, and something will come upon the earth from above. What comes from below is already here, mingling among men, but you don't know how. Many don't know the explanation of their own dreams. Many don't know the importance of the magnetosphere. Many of us have been spoiled because everything has been somewhat stable. Ladies and gentlemen, that stability is about to be challenged in one of the worst ways it can. And as these things begin to change and alter the earth, so will the minds of mankind become desperate, and war will naturally ensue again. And as all these things break out, you are given some of the greatest instruction you've ever received in your life. Those are the actual words of Christ, of which men scarcely follow, let alone understand. And again, you must understand the darkness, that you not be a part of it. If you can hear, your struggle is going to be over. If you cannot, you're going to continue to struggle. You see, because of this, many of you have let your surroundings master you. You've been governed by your surroundings. You've been governed by your circumstances. Well, that time is over. It's time for you to actually stand in what you know of as authority. Because all these things are coming, and you will not be able to stand unless you can stand today. You've been tossed to and fro, and you shouldn't have been. I'm telling you right now, you shouldn't be tossed by anything. You should be stationary, stable. But with an identity crisis, how can you be? How can you be? Many have let their surroundings dictate their lives. And all these effects will intensify because you have a human brain. But I caution you, in this topic, please don't go down that path of darkness seeking those things of darkness. And I'm going to explain to you what the darkness is as best I can, what I'm familiar with. And it takes a toll on everybody who comes in contact with it. In fact, a person who's irresponsible should never seek out darkness. It will surely consume your soul. You'll barely return from it. It is a grip of a construct of something not real but so powerful, many don't escape. Well, I tell you this. With the exotic elements that are coming into the solar system, so will that darkness grow. Darkness will again be upon the face of the earth. And what was ancient will rise up again. Folks, you live in a very different time. Most of what I'm going to say to a lot of people, you won't believe. But then again, no one believes until something happens. And then when something happens, they seek out the source of those who knew. By that time, the sources have they're all but gone. Thus, you're stuck in a place with no instruction, with things you cannot possibly believe, just like the undoing of the earth. There are signs all around you. The interiors of the earth. Everything is waking up. The earth right now is about to turn 1 degree. And what indication do you have of that? Does anybody have an indication of that? And it's not going to take a long time for the earth to shift 1 degree in a tilt. It's huge. 1 degree. 1 degree is going to continue to change the weather in an abrupt way. The water will move. Melting will start. And this is what they always knew about. It is under the cover of global warming. I tell you this. The changes of the earth have nothing to do with humanity. And everything to do with truth. And it's covered over with a lie. Global warming, a key word used for the elite to grab their attention and foretell of meetings and everything else. Do you know what happened in 2004? That's when all the knowledge was solidified. The knowledge of global warming actually began in the 1900s. That's when the observations took place. In 2004, everything was solidified. Preparations were made in the 1930s and 40s so they could survive. Yes, they have underground bases. Who doubts that? And this won't be a talk about the underground bases, but I'm telling you, they do exist. They do exist. I mean, everybody should know the common underground bases. The CFR for Greenbrier, built in 1958, 1962, that was build time. It was to allow people to operate and sustain them for 60 days. NORAD, Cheyenne Mountain, 1961, 1965, build time. That's the Space Control Center, communications with the National Military Command. Iron Mountain, that's where the elite are protected. We can go on, China Lake, Mount Weather, Denver, Australia, Israel. They have underground bases there too. These things were built. 4 to 5 year build time back then. What do you think it is now? How vast do you think these structures are now? And I tell you, they're preparing for something. You know it as global warming, which began in 2004. Do you not know in 2004, global warming was actually placed on Net Geo's website, National Geographic, and it was also in Business Week. What's it doing in Business Week? And they gave you the cover that somebody was trying to make money off of it. That was to throw you off the path. Let me tell you how they work. Can I just tell you how they work? Because global warming has to do with the exotic things that are coming into the solar system. They are intertwined, one in the same. Let me tell you how they work, though. Because you not having certain knowledges, you're kept in the dark about many things. You can only believe what you see, and so you buy the paradigm of which they place before you. When they get somebody that grows up in their educational systems, they cause them to believe in a lie, and thus they go out with a sincere heart and begin to fight for that lie. Global warming. You see how that works? They actually do believe in global warming, those spokespersons, because they sincerely believe you can always detect the sincerity. That's what keeps it plausible in your mind. It's important you understand this process. That's how they work. It's how they always have worked. Is everybody clear on that process? Like with the government, they raise a person telling them lies about the government, education. They pat them on the back and say, job well done, and then they place them in a position of power. That person wholeheartedly does their job, believing in what they're doing. They do that so that because you can always sense sincerity. I'm telling you that people have been raised into a lie. You have detected their sincerity, which causes you to believe in their cause. Then it spreads like a virus. This is what has happened to the world, and it's time that you look beyond it. We become a slave to a paradigm that's an illusion. All of what you see is not real, though it has real effects upon your life. You are simply maneuvered by a control system that you need to break free of. I'm trying to help you before it comes crumbling down, and then your heart starts pumping very fast. Because in your mind, you will think that your world came to an end. Men's hearts will fail them for fear, for looking after those things that are coming upon the world. That's not from one thing, that's from multiple things. You cannot be ruled by your surroundings. You cannot be ruled by those things that enter into your life. You can't. 2004, global warming hit the front pages. Scientists, they already admitted back in 2004 and swept all that under the carpet. They didn't know the dynamics of climate change, and thus Princeton University was charged with the task of coming up with something and coming up with something quick. Now when you talk about global warming, people get this question in their heads. They'll say, I don't believe in global warming, yet it's getting warmer every single year. So what they did was they threw out a word, and people began to chase and support the word with what's happening in the world. The conditions of global warming are absolutely 100% real. The earth is warming up. Radiation is building. Sickness is running rampant all over the earth. But why? That's what we're here to talk about, so you can properly prepare for this. You see, there are forces out there that mankind cannot comprehend. And you may ask, what does this have to do? Well, if it comes, what can we do about it? Let me tell you something. It's changing the way you perceive the world. That's why. You will not be able to tell the difference between the dream world and this world. Your reality is going to be torn down from the inside. The veil is going to be ripped. And what was once partitioned in the darkness will be brought into the light, a realm where you can see. And you in a like manner will not be what you are, but will be half and half. And if your soul is shaky, you're not going to make it. I can tell you that now. You won't make it. They already know of this. You also have to get it in your minds that the elite have ceremonies. Why do they have ceremonies? Why are certain lands marked for ceremonies? You're going to have to know that too, because you really think it's all a physical undoing of the earth? I hope not. Why all of a sudden does everybody have a warlike mentality? Why does the populace no longer believe the lies of the government? The populace has become rebellious in regard to following what the government has dictated for so long. People don't even trust their own history. They're becoming wise. They can see the lies in history. Many things are being uncovered. People no longer desire to follow like cattle, but they're saying, no, something is wrong with this, something is wrong with that. Can you see that happening? And what has everybody started doing because they don't trust what's been put before them? They're searching for proof themselves. And this is where you must be careful. You must be careful, cautious, and have a sound mind when doing so. And we have to talk about true darkness. Do you know what comes with every catastrophe? What happens? Do you really know what happens? How many people here would consider yourself a spiritual person? Hopefully all of you would, because in fact you are spirit. And your soul is eternal. For your soul to be condemned or absolutely destroyed, that means thrown into a place of which there's no return. But if you're spiritual people, you understand that you are in fact spiritual. You're inside of a vessel. You need to understand that first. Many people are ruled by their bodies. Don't be that way. You're growing. You're on a path of growing. Everything is growing. You must understand that for each step toward the light, opposition is supposed to come. So overcome the opposition. This is your lot in life. Can you see that? You have to be strengthened in truth. to withstand what's coming. That's why people can scarcely believe in the words of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. They call him Lord, but they don't listen to anything he said. They profess with their mouths his truth, yet they don't follow his truth. This will be the undoing of the soul. This entire process is for growth, but the darkness will come totally against your soul, and believe me, it has begun. It has begun. 2004, everything started. Why did it start in 2004? Because that was the impact of a magnetar. That's why. That was the impact of a magnetar. That's when the top of our atmosphere was ripped off by a wave sent by a magnetar. That's why. A piece of our atmosphere was ripped off and you didn't even know it in 2004. Nobody talked about that, did they? Anybody discuss that? No, they didn't. Oh, they had all the instrumentation in the world monitoring it. They were scared to death. They didn't know what would happen. They didn't know. But I'm telling you, they were deathly afraid because they saw it coming. They can see a lot of things coming. They're not going to tell you. For what good would that do? You would only get in the way. Telling you that in 2004, everything changed. And that's why in 2005, the United Nations had the Climate Change Conference. How convenient. 2004, global warming, that discussion really takes off. And in 2005, they had the Climate Change Conference. How convenient. Ever since 2005, what have you noticed? A change in weather phenomena, a change in earthquake activity, a change with the other objects in space. That's why we send probes all over the place. For proof of something, yes, but to also monitor. We've got satellites and craft orbiting just about everything we can because they serve as an early warning system of what will happen to Earth. See, if something is just indigenous to Earth, maybe mankind can change it. But what we're having is not indigenous to Earth. It is not just for Earth. The entire solar system is beginning to do a wicked shimmy. And solar activity is a telltale sign of the exotic energy that's coming into the solar system. The sun acts as a shield to the entire solar system. The sun does, just as your skin acts as a shield to protect your insides and to keep things away from the precious internal portions of your body, right? So does the sun create a barrier to keep highly charged particles at bay. And every so often, it's pierced. The skin, we could say, that envelops our solar system is weakening, and things are coming through. There's nothing mankind can do about it. And the Lord conveys this in prophecy. And it's coming. That was December 27th. Earth was impacted by that blast. 2004, December 27th. And wouldn't you know it, we have another one coming in December. How strange. Why? Because there's a phenomenon in space called pulses, right? Pulses. Pulses happen at intervals. Normally when something blows, like a magnetar or something like that, it sends out multiple shock waves. Multiple. It's like triple, quadruple explosions, right? Well, they're headed towards Earth from more than one source. There's nothing anybody can do about it, which is why everybody's watching for the shock wave in October. We could have some severe atmospheric problems in October as a shock wave finally passes through Earth. It is believed right now that shock wave could affect at least 1/3 of our atmosphere. As far as the other effects, nobody knows. We do know that this thing is just charged with energy because it's coming from a source of almost pure energy. 2004, that magnetar just barely skipped us. In fact, it didn't even touch us, but it ripped off a portion of the atmosphere. I tell you this, when it passed It was millions of miles away. But it still sucked off part of our atmosphere. That's a problem. I believe the distance of that pulse of the magnetar was about the distance from Earth to Mercury. That's the distance you're talking about, right? I'm sorry, twice the distance between Earth and Mercury. It was twice the distance, and it still popped off a piece of our atmosphere. Still, even with that distance. So can you begin to see what the Earth must undergo, what it's about to undergo? It's not a plaything. Not a plaything. There were also psychological effects that took place in 2004 that have been evolving since then. Now, you all are spiritual because I'm going to have some deep spiritual conversation with you. And for the second half of the show, anybody who's you can't take that information of what actually is. But I go into the spiritual things because I know I'm going to sound like a crazy guy. Oh, that's okay. You'll be warned. Because I hate to tell you, but you're involved in spiritual warfare. You need to know how to war spiritually. People are losing left and right. Let me ask you a question. Are you depressed today? Do you have joy in your life today? Because if you don't, you're losing. Are you bothered by your situation so much it feels like there's no way out? Because if you do, you're losing. It's time for you to win. All this losing stuff and appeasing this darkness and evil and all this stuff that comes into your life, you don't make friends with it. You don't learn to live with it. You purge your life of it. I mean, if you saw the truth like that, you wouldn't be so nice. Because people have taught you how to live with the very things Jesus said to purge yourselves of. And the fingerprints are all over you. Darkness is all around you. You can never escape darkness. It's all around you. But you have been made to overpower it every single time. A light brought into a pitch black room will shed light. Never can the darkness put the light out, but a light can shed light on the darkness. That's the power of light. You are a light. So then why are you letting darkness overpower you? It's because you turned your light off. That's why you can't give in. You can no longer afford to make excuses for yourself. You can't do that because you're losing. I'm telling you right now, you're losing. You're not here to lose. But it's time for us to heed the words of Christ in truth, not make the words of Christ what we want them to be. Speak about them, get joyful for 5 minutes, and then go into a fit of depression for 5 days. That's losing. And sure enough, Jesus warned us about that. Men's hearts are going to fail them for fear because, listen to me, let me give you an image of something. Darkness is all over the world, but in that darkness is light. Let me tell you what happens when the Lord comes back with his presence. You ready? It's very simple. He will banish all darkness. The only thing that will be left is light. What's in light? All truth. So then those who were overpowered and partook in darkness, guess what they're going to do? When all the darkness is gone, so is their willpower to do anything in the dark, and only truth will remain, and they're going to find themselves short, far short of ever meeting even the first mark. And when that happens, they're going to hold their heads down knowing that they're guilty. But you're children of the light if you choose to be. If you choose to be. Right? You're always growing to become when you cannot comprehend. So then break the bonds of darkness in the time given to you. You don't know what it is you're going to be, but you're always growing. Your thoughts today are not like the thoughts you had when you were a child. You're always growing. So then take each day and break the bonds of that darkness. But you must know what the darkness is. Jesus described what the darkness is. It was described over and over again. Most people think it's monsters. It is not. But there are powers over the darkness that are in your life. Do you want them out or you want to keep them? Who wants liberty and who does not? Because I can assure you that when these things begin, listen, a great war is also on the horizon. Now they're going to utilize the breakdown and the fracturing of this planet, and war will ensue. They're going to utilize this event of a breakdown. They're going to use that to their advantage for war. The inhabitants of the earth will surely be few. I would go so far as to say 50% of humanity in the first phase of this war is going to be dead. Are they going to use nuclear weapons? No, they will not. They're going to use something a little more. See, you still think nuclear weapons are just the biggest and baddest weapons on the planet. Yep, you've got to wake up a little bit. How long they hide the SR-71 Blackbird and everybody said, oh, there's no SR-71. They began developing the SR-71 Blackbird in the 30s. How did they do that in the 30s with no computers or anything else? And did you know, listen to me, they still use the SR-71 Blackbird today because it can't replicate, even with the computers and technology we have, they can't replicate the perfection of technology that those guys back then put in the SR-71 Blackbird. What's wrong with that picture? Anybody? Anybody? I thought we were so advanced. What's wrong with that picture? How come we can't replicate some of the systems in the SR-71 Blackbird with the same quality they had back then? They didn't have computers. They had slide rules. Why? Why? Just like nuclear weapons. You think they have nuclear weapons. You do. Wouldn't it be foolish for a person to blow himself up? So I'm telling you now, they have something a little more than nuclear weapons. Same atomic yield, but works very differently. I listen to the scriptures, and a lot of people, when the eye sockets are melted out of a person's eyes, and their tongue is melted out, right? While they stand up on their feet. In a nuclear blast, the first thing that comes out is a shock wave. It's going to knock everything over. If you look at a nuclear blast and you're close enough to get fried like that, the shock wave hits you first. The shock wave hits you first. Then the heat comes. In that shock wave is the heat. You'll be knocked back so far. But there's another weapon that will take the soft tissue of your body. And it will do away with the soft tissue first. All the way down to the bone, which means you will be standing on your feet and all the soft tissue will be taken away. Why? Why? It's how you're held together. What's holding all of your molecules and everything together? Now, I'm telling you, they have found, they know. They know about the reaction, and that reaction will do away with your soft tissue first. In a split second. It's somewhat like nuclear. But they have learned how to control the yield without all the radioactive residue. It still has a residue, but a very different residue. And it can be done. See, the problem is this. If we interpret today based upon what we see today, we will never know what's happening today. And that's how they have you. You can only interpret events by what you can tangibly see. Unless you utilize faith, unless you trust the Word of God, unless you stop trying to figure out what the Word of God is saying and accept what it says. Because what you're thinking of has already been outdated. Everybody with me so far? Just like CERN, right? There is a public side of CERN, and then there's the true side of CERN. I can assure you nobody's trying to collide little bitty particles and to find out what. I can assure you that's not the mission. What are they going to do? Cure cancer with it? No. It all leads back to something else. Now, there is the public side of science, of which people are passionate about, and that's the part they know. But listen to me close. In every single experiment, somebody collects the data. Who collects the data, not everybody's aware of. So what they're doing is having people who believe in the experiment, giving them a portion of a job. They go out and accomplish that job and spend their lifetime doing it so somebody else can collect the data, and they're doing something else with the results. But the people up top, they only know the experiment. They're saying, yes, we're doing our best in the experiment. It works. And that's how they get back online and say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. CERN has nothing to do with this, that, and the other. That's what the experts will say. CERN has nothing to do with this, that, and the other. Why? Because they're passionate about that compartmentalized task that they have. So they accomplish what they're given to accomplish, but as a whole, they don't know what it's producing. There's a portion of science that's a mystery to those folks. They're not educated in full sciences. Why in the world would anybody ever do that? If you had knowledge of all things, there's no way you could teach others knowledge of all things. They wouldn't have a precept for it. So those who know the exotic sciences and the rest of the sciences are the ones who are collecting the information, doing something with it. A wave of nasty stuff is coming. The particles are already coming through. They're already coming through, right? It's kind of like a fireplace. You light up a fireplace, right? You get near the fire and you start feeling the heat. The fire didn't pass through you. You didn't pass through the fire. But you feel the heat. What is that? Infrared light. All you're feeling is light. You know that? That's what you feel. Light. That's all you're feeling. What is that infrared light? It's radiation. Is it going to kill you? Well, if you're overexposed to it, it's going to burn you up. But your flesh reacts to the radiation. It raises your body temperature by exciting molecules in your flesh. Therefore, you feel heat. Heat is movement. Movement is heat. Okay, you got that? Heat is movement. Movement is heat. So when you get near something that's infrared, the molecules internally begin to move around a lot more, and then you feel heat, the heat of your body. In the same fashion, this wave is coming through. What it emits, the solar system is responding to, just like your skin responds to infrared light. So does the solar system respond to these exotic particles coming in, because the source is coming close. The source of these waves is coming close. Now, close does not mean right there where you can see it. I can assure you that, but prior to you seeing anything, this world is going to rumble like you never saw before. Did you notice by your reading of the Bible, listen to me, the wars come first. Humanity is desperate after the wars. Then you have an introduction of the others coming into the world to instruct them yet again. And then the end comes. The end does not come prior to that, it comes after. But all the while, the effects of what is coming closer is being felt. The earth is rent asunder, right? That's happening now. But we can't realize it. You know why? Because we live in a constructive time. If something does not happen in ample time, do you know what we do? We say, I don't believe it. That's why catastrophes take people all the time. That's why earthquakes cost lives. And they say, well, I never would have thought this or that would have happened. I never would have thought this storm would have formed and this would have happened. Why? Because we lose patience. We can observe time, right? We can observe time like things were intended to observe with patience. Time, things of time must be observed with patience. Otherwise, you don't see anything, and you live in a lifestyle of bliss that you don't know anything. And you're celebrating every day, or you're depressed every day because you don't know what's happening. If I asked you a question, how has your life progressed in the last 5 years? Who can give me an answer, an honest answer? Because as soon as I say that, you'll start thinking, you'll point out the good things first, and then you'll think about it more and start complaining about everything that went wrong. 2004, all this began with a magnetar. 2005, that's when the melting began. You can't trust digital data. Can I just say that? It's very difficult to trust what's on the internet. Oh, but they have gotten us again. They've gotten us again. They throw data on the internet. Nobody has a camera and go in an airplane, confirm the data on the internet. Nobody ever thinks to do that. Who will go out there and confirm data on the internet? And so what they're doing is giving you secondhand data, a portion of data, and then people draw conclusions based on that. That's why they're going to be taken by surprise. They're trusting in the internet. All you have to do is trust in the Spirit of the Lord, and then you will know. You will know. So they knew this was coming. Many people think an ice age is coming again. It is not. Not the way they know it. But the process is already beginning, right? It's already beginning. So, this is what they've been doing. Do you not know they've been clearing out the southern hemisphere through depopulation? How many of you know that? Clearing it out. Why would they clear that out? Because they know that's where they want to go. That's common knowledge. People have figured that one out. That's where they want to go. Why? Because they choose to believe in a certain, well, let's just say, certain givers of knowledge. They choose to believe in that. And so they want the southern hemisphere sick. If it gets sick enough, they can remove the people out of the southern hemisphere. They'll just start dying off. And they go down there and take that place. There's a reason. There's another reason. There's another reason, folks, listen, why they don't want a wall between Mexico and the U.S. It makes too much sense to put a barrier up there, right? They're never going to do it. They don't want it. Do you know why? Because they're going to have to go over there. They can't stay in the northern hemisphere. They know what's about to happen to the entire northern hemisphere, according to their knowledge. But even with them is somewhat speculation. See, all the weapons of war are where? Where are they at? Where are they? In the northern hemisphere. Where are all the defense weapons located? In the northern hemisphere. Anybody following me? Chemical weapons, biological weapons, incineration units for contaminated folks. All the coffins that you guys saw are built of a special material that can be incinerated with the bodies within it. They're not just coffins. Those go in incineration devices made of specs to incinerate the bodies. Why? Because they know what's coming. They know what they are going to do. It's a self-fulfilled prophecy. War is not going to break out with them not knowing about it. They want the war. I'm telling you, they want the war. They're going to have the war. The war will happen. It will take place because something else has taken over the world without your knowing. It's going to get strange. I'm going to save that for the second half. Hopefully give you some instruction. Now, you're going to think I'm crazy. I don't care. Some of you may have been confronted by the same things. There's but one word given a man that holds authority. And you think you know what that word is, but scarcely people know what a word is. You think the words is contingent upon your language? Wrong, wrong, wrong. That's wrong. How can man speak one word, but it's different in a ton of languages? That tells you right there the word that we speak, the vibrations coming out of our mouths don't work, do they? Because there is a what different pronunciation with each language. So then the word is something a little more than what you thought it was, is it not? You thought it was speaking, didn't you? Speaking confirms something else. I'll give you that hint, but we'll get back to that in the second hour. Are there scriptural references to that? You better believe it. You better believe it. Oh, and by the way, all words of power are also mocked so that you think they're just ordinary. The words that were given to you are commands. Words that darkness can never utter. Only you can utter. That's a wonderful thing. Only you can utter them. Only you can utter them, but the darkness cannot. Therefore, it can bind the darkness. You've always had that ability to bind things in the darkness, but you didn't know how, nor did you know how to align yourself with truth. And like the truth is not something that's right. The truth, I'm not talking about the truth like you say the sky is blue. Not that type truth. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something else, something you need to apply to your life, because I'll say it again. People are living a miserable life, and they're clinging to Christ, but they're in spiritual warfare. And if they're losing every single day, they have no joy. When you have joy perpetually, that means you're winning. You're progressing. But if you don't have joy perpetually and everything is wrong, you're full of complaints, you're losing. You can't get around that. You can speak like you're winning every single day, but you're not. And you don't need to be that way. How many people have tried to claim they were winning and lost even more? Jesus did not give us magical statements to say. That's witchcraft. Oh, just say these words and that thing will... No. It's not what he gave us. To understand the truth, you have to be truthful. You're going to have to know the truth of you first. How can you speak truth if you can't align yourself with the truth that's within you already? Who out there has truthfully acknowledged who they are? I'll tell you how you have not. Because since day one, you've been changing who you are. Since day one, you've been trying to look different, sound different, act different, walk different, dress different. And why? Because you don't accept who you are. From day one, you've denied who you are. If you have curly hair, you want straight hair, curly hair, short hair, long hair, short hair. If you're light, you want to be darker. If you're darker, you want to be lighter. You've denied everything that the Creator made you. Here's proof. And if you're yourself around other people, you feel what? Uncomfortable. See, lest you conform to your environment, you don't like who you are. You're comparing yourself against a construct of a lie, which is somebody else. You're one of a kind. How in the world can you compare yourself to somebody else? How can you do that? Do you see the lies and the tendencies to lies that we've been living under? And then you wonder, somebody asked me, where's the power? Where's the power that was in the days of the apostles? Where's that power at? Are you starting to see why? How can you speak truth but live a lie? My Lord, that won't work. That's not going to work. So what I'm telling you is this. We have to identify us first. But you need to know the truth of the surroundings you live. Don't make anything interesting that your flesh gets all you get excited about, but you're not changing in the soul. Right? Stop gathering to yourselves information that appeases your mind. If it will not give to growth of your soul in the truth. And there's but one source of truth. If it's not giving to that knowledge is useless for you. Don't ever be afraid of knowledge. You're not supposed to be afraid of the darkness, but to overcome the darkness. Because you're right smack dab in the middle of darkness. Do you know that? You were set in the darkness. You're right smack dab in the middle of it. You're not supposed to fear the darkness. What is that? Can you imagine you set a light in a room, but you're scared to turn the light on? Now, what good is the light? Seriously, what good is that? You're scared to turn the light on, and you sat in a dark room, and you're scared because you say, oh no, because I think I heard something move in a corner. I'm not going in there and turn that light on. You have just defeated the entire purpose of putting the light in a dark room in the first place. That's how most people live their lives. They're afraid to know the full truth. Until you gain the knowledge, you see, fear is because of a mystery. And a mystery is only a mystery when you don't know it. If something is a mystery to you, then you don't know nothing about it. That's a simple explanation. Things are no longer a mystery once you acquire the knowledge to know what that thing was in the first place. There is no mystery to a person of wisdom and knowledge and understanding. Knowledge is useless without understanding and wisdom. To be wise is to utilize the knowledge you have. If you're gaining knowledge that you cannot utilize in your life, that's foolish. Wisdom, my definition, is the ability to apply the knowledge that you have to your path, your walk, your life. Wisdom goes hand in hand with understanding. You cannot be wise if you don't understand. You can have knowledge but not understand it. If I gave you a formula, you can have knowledge of a formula, but you may not understand the formula. Right? You can obtain knowledge. Whether you comprehend that knowledge or not, it's a different story. And if you can't comprehend it, you cannot be wise by utilizing that knowledge. See, the fact is, we've been deceiving ourselves so long, we've gotten comfortable in a type of ignorance. That's why the people out there, the elite, get away with what they get away with, and they scoff and laugh at us. Because we say, I know everything, and truthfully, we know nothing. We know everything they taught us, and that's why they're laughing. Can you imagine your child at home? Don't they do this to you? They think they know everything. So you come and correct them, and they say, well, no, I don't believe what you're saying. You thought it yourself when you were small. What'd you tell your parents? Well, that was back then. Now we live in this day. They don't know anything about it. That's what you were thinking in your mind. Some of you do that now to your parents. You think their knowledge is foolishness, and your knowledge is right on time. Interesting, isn't it? I thought we put away childish things. This competitive nature of trying to overpower and be above somebody else, that's foolishness. To understand the nature of who you are is to understand that you're never over anybody else, nor is anybody underneath you or above you. Because you all exist in the same plane. You're all reaching for the same thing. That's understanding. That's why you can't love one and hate another. That's the heart of a fool, to love one and hate another. That really is the heart of a fool. Or to say you love this guy, but you hate the other guy is the heart of a fool. That's foolishness. That's part of chaos. That's part of the darkness. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a part of the darkness. A part of the darkness. You know who keeps darkness alive? Mankind does. Mankind. Fear is kept alive and fed by mankind. Fear is the perpetual foolishness of not wanting to know because it may seem scary. So you're acting by both emotions to deny knowledge. And you keep a fear, and it's perpetuated because people say, ooh, that could be creepy over there. Don't do that. Nothing is creepy once you understand it. Nothing. Doesn't matter what it is. A bug is creepy to a kid, right? If they're creeped out by bugs, a bug can be creepy because they don't know the capabilities. And in some cases, a bug is not creepy to a kid, like a bee, because they don't know it stings. And as soon as one bee stings them, they're afraid of everything that flies. That's the ignorance of not knowing. That's ignorance. That's not knowing, right? That is a rejection of knowledge. People are scared of certain animals because they don't know if they're venomous or not. You say one snake is venomous, all of a sudden everybody's scared of that animal, right? Just pluck it away, how about that? But you know, if you know what is venomous and what is not, you lose fear of certain things. Is that right or wrong? Is that right or wrong? And so if you walk around this world thinking everything can bite you, you start cutting off company and everything else. But those people who isolate themselves in that respect are afraid of darkness. They've not overcome it because they're still afraid. If you overcome darkness, there is no fear or value in darkness. Therefore, you can walk your path unimpeded. Most people are shaken off their path by scary things. It could be their situation. It could be anything. But they have a fear. They're walking with fear. Fear is an entity. That's why in the Bible it says God has not given us the spirit of fear. Fear is from an entity. And what you're doing is holding its hand and walking with it. Fear goes hand in hand with ignorance, the unknown, a trickster. I say face all fears, all of them. Fear nothing. Take the Lord with you everywhere. How do you take the Lord with you? Take his principles. You can't take the Lord with you and deny his principles. That won't work. We can no longer afford to live like folks. I'm telling you right now, this wave that's coming in. If you think it's just exotic particles coming in, you need to know the nature. I'm sorry if they taught you evolution. I'm sorry if they discounted spiritual things in your life. I'm sorry that you don't believe certain things have a form which shouldn't, and certain things with a form really have none. I'm sorry you don't understand those things. But the Lord gave us knowledge, the words of Christ, and we still won't utilize them. Thus we'll be taken by surprise. The day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night. Why? Because people are not going to be ready. Too many people are looking away, trying to find their own path. How many times have we set up and said, well, where should I go? Lord, what do you want me to do? How can you not find that? We'll talk about that too. Oh, they've done so many things. People are duped and caught in this cycle. A daily cycle of joy and sadness, joy and sadness. I'm telling you, you don't have to be there. You need to have wholeness of mind, to be sober. Stop having a cycle of joy and sadness, which is a construct of illusion within itself, and be stable, steady, steadfast, operating and working by principles, no longer searching for happiness. Don't search for joy. Become it. How about that one? Is that clear enough for everybody? Stop searching for something that's already granted to you. If I gave you $5 in your pocket, why would you go around the house looking for $5? Wouldn't that be crazy? So stop searching for things. Stop searching for those things and become it. I'll get back to that. Second half, I'm going to talk about those things. Right now, we're going to get down to the details of some things. I don't want to sound like a nut job, okay? And I need you guys to understand that I really do love my Lord and Savior above all things. It is his guidance that opens the eyes. Sure, there are other ways, but he is the only way, the truth, and the life. You're going to understand that a little more in second half by way of principles. Okay? Principles. His principles are above all principles. His way is above any way previously taught. Mankind, they have a problem with that. The way of Christ is the way above all ways given to mankind. Many ways have been given to mankind that resemble those words of Christ. But now he is above all ways. No longer did the word come through a person. No longer did the word come by dream. No longer does the word come by disembodied messengers. But it came from the word to mankind, direct, so adopt his principles and live by them. His principles are above all principles. They are direct, they are the truth, they are unambiguous. Straightforward, follow them, keep them. They should be a treasure to you. That should be your treasure. Not searching all throughout the Bible, linking yourself to the words of the prophets, of which Christ's words superseded them. Christ's words are above them. His words and principles are above everything. That's why people search so much, because they have not found the treasure in the words of Christ. So they go read these weird things like what is the one thing some people were asking me about? Well, should I read the Emerald Tablets? Should I read, or Zechariah Ascension? Should I read Zechariah Ascension? My true answer would be, well, if you know the principles of Christ, and then if you truly know them and then read these things, you're going to find out that all of the wisdom you thought they had, all of it came from one source, and even they back then tainted that wisdom, and Christ gave you the true way. And that's why it's very difficult for mankind to operate by the principles of Christ, because it supersedes everything everybody else taught. Did they teach truth? Yes, it did. Yes, they did. But they taught truth based upon what they knew at the time. And I'm telling you now, there are no mysteries in the world. There are no mysteries to the pyramids, to the Sphinx. There are no mysteries to anything on this earth. But the knowledge is hidden from you, but the knowledge is also in front of your face. I tell you this, you learn the principles of Christ. There's no more mystery in the world, period. Within the principles of Christ is knowledge of all things. Nothing will ever be hidden from you. I'm telling you the truth. Of all of the searching and the wondering, of all of my own personal upbringing, academia and everything else, all the wisdom, knowledge, understanding I ever desired are in the principles of Christ. He supersedes all things you can ever learn, all things. He gave you the truth directly. You don't have to receive it indirectly anymore. You don't have to. And mankind, they make up these strange theories. Pyramids, one. That mankind does not know what they really served. So they make up things. They make up constructs and say, well, they must have been for this, or they must have been for that. They're guessing. And it didn't matter what they were made for. They're pieces. They don't work now. And one of the deceptions of mankind is when the ancient world rises again. Do you know the ancient world will rise? And that the undoing of the earth was already foretold about. In every single continent, there is a prophecy. And Jesus told us the true one. And he gave us the reason. There will be massive destruction, yes. There will be things you're not acquainted with, yes. But mankind is going to be reacquainted with the spiritual realm very fast. If you're a believer in Christ, your journey has already begun to go back home. To go to the place reserved for you, your growth. You're growing here. You're not a slave to darkness anymore, but you were. You're not children of wrath, but you were. Because you were dead. You were in the grips of death. Even life and death is a construct. Do you know that? You're an eternal. A spirit cannot die like that, and a soul is eternal. So where then is life or death? These things you must know, so that you look at life differently. Most people fear death. It's because they only know about the flesh. If you approach a spiritual person who has a fear of death, I tell you this, they only know about the flesh. They have heard about spiritual things. They're not walking spiritually. We read that all the time, but who's going to do it in truth? There's nothing in flesh you can hold on to walk spiritual. To walk spiritual is to abandon things of the flesh, being moved by the flesh. Don't deceive yourselves. Let's not be deceived. Back into the second wave. So they have been setting up things to prepare themselves for the undoing of the earth, of which these waves are going to play a part in. They really are. The increase in volcanic activity, the increase in the weather phenomena comes from simple heating and molecules being added into the solar system. How will the earth heat from the outside in? How would that happen? I'll tell you why. In the ionosphere, temperatures are enormous. You know they're really hot, but here's the problem. If you don't have molecules, right? If molecules have no density, they're up there, but they're spaced out. You'll never perceive heat. There's nothing to transfer heat, correct? Correct? Is that right or not? That's why for those of you who tinker with electronics, you know that with a power transistor, power IC, you have to have what? A heat sink. To do what? To dissipate the heat, to transfer the heat. Normally that's aluminum. You have to transfer the heat. You know that if you take a pot and put it on your stove without water in it, you're going to do what? Burn the pot. Why? Because there's nowhere for the heat to actually transfer to. So all that heat is concentrated on the metal itself, but if you put water in the same pot, all that heat is transferred to the what? The water. Because now as matter, it can transfer the heat. Well, as these exotic waves do blow past us, and what's happening, because our bow shock is really taking a hit right now, things are leaking through, the density of the atmosphere is increasing. Even a tiny, tiny, tiny bit will increase the heat factor around the earth. So then the density of the atmosphere and space itself is beginning to increase. That will throw everything off balance, everything off kilter. Why is the atmosphere right now on the earth hold more moisture than ever before? We talked about this in 2011, 12, 13, and 14. Of course, not too many took heed back then, but they are now. You know, when they say water bombs and stuff, and then all of a sudden, now I'm telling you the truth, that's a natural process, but all of a sudden people are saying, well, they're developing devices to do this. No, they're not. No, they're not. This was on the list so long ago of what would take place. You can seed a cloud with all sorts of things and cause many different things. I'm telling you now, that's not what's happening. And it will become worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. It is just now beginning to take off. People called me one guy called me a dodo meister. What is that? That's one of the words I would use for myself. Are you kidding? That's what he called me. Until it began to happen, then they drop off like flies. There's going to be you can't have a drought and floods at the same time. Really? I think we're having it. And it's not that listen, these things come as a warning to those I care about. Have you noticed I'm not trying to make a name? Because anybody trying to make a name would not say anything crazy for fear of losing all the people that listen to them. I'm not worried about people listening to me. I'm just doing what the Lord's placed in my heart to do. Has it been a falsehood? Yes or no? These things have been happening. They're just beginning to build. Thus, they're preparing on two fronts. Number one, for the undoing of the earth. But number two, for the arrival of the dark ones. I call them the dark ones. That's not the real name. That's just what I'm going to call them, the dark ones. The dark ones. There's a reason why an angel with a bottomless pit came and opened the pit and these things flew out. It told you something verbatim. And I know that many people think they know what they are, but I'm telling you they don't. In the second half, listen to me, if you get creeped out, spooked out, if you're one of those skeptical people, you want to, because everybody should not, this isn't for everybody. The second half is not for everybody. I'm going to tell you that now. This first half, though, it's time for you to prepare. You got to prepare. I'm gonna share with you some of the conditions you're gonna have to undergo. You probably won't believe some of the conditions. I'm gonna say it anyway because you have to have it. In fact, that whatever I tell you is going to be confirmed internally, and other people have gotten the same warning. Now, I say that by faith because I know truth is truth. Truth is not new. Truth will not reside in just one person, but is in everybody. Truth has always been there. Before us and after us, it will be there. Truth is always there, just like wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is always present. We just don't grab hold of it. It has always, will always, and shall always exist. We're the ones growing to utilize it. But it has been there all the time. So then guess what? The truth being placed in you can only be confirmed. Nothing new can ever come to you. You'll never learn anything new. Anything you have learned you were supposed to know in the first place, it's always been there. That's why you can confirm it. That's why you confirm the words of Christ. You don't go around debating, well, should I believe that or not? When a truth is spoken, it is confirmed within you already. I can never speak anything to you that's not within you. Right? You all speak English and a diversity of other language, but if I spoke in Mandarin and nobody here spoke Mandarin, you would say, I don't understand what he's saying. Why? Because you don't know how to speak Mandarin. If you tell a child a giraffe is a giraffe, the child will say, okay. You tell a child a giraffe is a bird, they're going to look at you strange like, huh? That doesn't even feel right. That's what the child will do. They'll look at you like, huh? They'll have a hard time believing it. Why? Because the truth is in them too. Animal identification is not very difficult to teach a child. Why? Because everything you say confirms a truth that's already in them. That's why. Well, then all truth is like that. So there is nothing new. Nothing. There's nothing new. That's why I always say if I tell you something, it confirms internally inside of you. And it lines up with the Word of God, then that is truth. And if the whole body knows it. But only if you know it, that's a useless truth. It's useless. It's a puzzle. We need not give puzzles, but straightforward speech. And we're not fearmongers or anything. I don't like that term. That's a dumb term, right? In truth, a fearmonger is a person who creates an atmosphere of fear to gain from. But if somebody's throwing you under the bus for telling the truth of what is to come, then so be it. That's where I live anyway, under the bus. And the bush is under the bus, just in case you're noticing. So this global warming stuff came down 2004. Then you had these strange announcements, didn't you? Like climate chaos. Now, here's what's funny. Because they took everybody's mind from the climate change to climate chaos, and everybody just, what they do to that statement of climate chaos? They threw it away, didn't they? How fast did they forget? Because nothing happened like people expected it to happen. And everybody forgot. Why did you forget? I'll tell you why. Because you dictated what that was going to look like. And when it didn't happen the way that you dictated, you forgot about it. You shouldn't have. Because right at the time, that climate chaos start date given by the French, that's when chaos truly broke out. Why are people not paying attention? Global warming is a key phrase, a key. It's like a phrase to echo out, hey, pay attention. But only to those they've shared a hidden knowledge to. And climate chaos itself was real. Why would they associate the climate with chaos in the first place? Because they're telling you a spiritual truth that you will never see. Somebody asked me about climate chaos, and I said, well, the climate chaos would be the condition of people. They will go into chaos. The climate of mankind will be chaos. But it also has to do with the state of the world. The undoing of the earth and the attitudes of men go hand in hand. They're intimately tied in together. You are of the elements of the earth. You are held together by the forces of the earth. Your flesh is, not your spirit, not your soul. Your flesh is. Therefore, if something happens to the earth, you're going to mentally feel it. You're going to physically feel it. People have been feeling joint pains and everything else. They've been looking for an excuse to say, hey, where's that coming from? Why am I feeling this way? I think it's because of HAARP. They just name up everything. I tell you this, why is it that in texts that are more than 5,000 years old, other people felt the same symptoms before the great calamities? Did they have HAARP back then? I don't think so. Don't think so. joint pain. Bones are brittle. Right? Something's happening to the bones of those of the older generation. Let me share something with you, something you didn't know. Right? There's a reason why those who were born between the years of 1960 and 1978 have bone issues. A telltale sign of bone issues are your teeth. Your teeth were prone to break down, and nobody ever investigates things like that. They were prone because you were starved of a mineral, because of the changes in the earth. Teeth problems hit those folks probably from the years of 1999 or 1990, I'll say 1996, to the present date. Teeth problems. Why did the bones become so brittle so fast? One small chip and the whole tooth went bad. Why? Many people say, well, it's because of fluoride, because they're making you brush off your enamel, and this, that, and the other. No, it's in your bones too. Because those same people who broke a bone, right, their bones didn't heal right. In fact, the pain of a broken bone was a little more than what it should have been. Why just those people? Why? What happened back then? I tell you, it was the introduction of exotic particles that took place in the Earth's atmosphere that settled to the Earth of which you were a part of. They were settling upon you every single day of your life. It changed you physically. It altered you physically. The introduction of radioactive particles. Now, some radiation does not bother you. You're irradiated already, or you would not have heat. But that radiation does not break down your cellular tissue. This particular element began to break down your bones. Many people of that time right now suffer with joint pain. They also suffer with muscle fatigue. That's muscle fatigue and joint pain. They're just plagued with swelling. And they never knew why. Never knew why. Isn't that something? You telling me this second wave is not going to impact humanity? I'm telling you it is. In October, we're going to find out some details. Good or bad, we'll put them out there. But when a storm is about to arrive, do you just tell the people, hey, go shopping that day. Don't worry about the storm. No, that would be ignorant. I'm sure those people in Louisiana would have loved to have heard BP Earthwatch who warned them that that storm was coming in the first place. I'm sure they would have. Isn't that something? I asked where he lives. He was watching it. Thumbs up for him on that one. How many more people living there, if he would have told them, hey, a storm and a flood is coming, they would have said, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not coming. They do it every single time. And then when it hits, you know what they say 2 months later? I wish somebody would have told me. I just lost so much. Well, somebody did tell you. You didn't believe it. The Lord does us like that. We read his scriptures, and then guess what? We don't do anything of what the scriptures say. We take out the good parts. Like it's a plate of food, and we don't want the rest of the stuff, so we pick out all the little chunks of the chunks we like, and we eat those and throw the rest away. That's how we do the Word of God. We pick and choose what we want to hear, therefore take things out of context, and our lives are miserable. Why? Because we hold no truth. Even the partial truth that Jesus shared with us is enough to get you from point A to point B. And we won't do that. We don't want the full meal. We want the parts that taste good to us at the time. Well, let me share something with you. With everything that you learn, there are parts that don't taste too good. There are parts that taste good, but all of it's healthy for your body, life-sustaining. If you don't give a child proper supplementation, they're going to grow up deformed. They may not like to eat the greens, but they need the fiber. They may not like to eat the proteins, but they need the protein. There are many things that are good for us we don't like. So you have to eat the full meal. Stop looking for the dessert, the pieces that look good. Take in the full meal of the words of Christ. It's very important that you do that of the words of Christ. He told you everything. I mean, everything he told you. How many people pay attention? They're trying to make it into something they can understand. That's a mistake. Ask the Lord for understanding. Stop trying to give your understanding to the Word of God that's already established. Ask Him for the understanding. Don't put your understanding on His Word. Ask Him for understanding. That's why people's interpretation of prophecy fails. I suffer from dodoism from that, so does everybody else. We're trying to make it into something we want to see. And then when it does not happen, we say, well, I don't understand. Well, of course you don't. Because you're trying to make it into something that you wanted it to be. Like the Antichrist. Everybody's trying to name the Antichrist. Well, the Bible said the Antichrist is going to be revealed. If he's going to be revealed, you need not search for him. Right? If he's going to be revealed, stop searching for the Antichrist. All the time people spend on trying to find the Antichrist, they could have been refining their lives. Isn't that something? So they find the Antichrist, and guess what? They're still in misery. See, it's a construct that's causing people to really falter. They spend a lifetime searching for things, and then when they find it, they find out their life has not changed. One of the falsehoods of life is this. You make a goal for yourself. You make a goal for yourself. You meet that goal and find out that your life is not enriched. Because all that time you're working hard towards that one goal that you made. You have forgotten about the goal that was destiny upon your life. There is a goal to your life already pre-established. And if you forget about that, what good is anything else? Because you'll gain the world and lose your soul. I'm sure I heard that somewhere before. All right, so back to the wave. You guys, you may not believe this, but you're going to be alive at the time when the winds begin to blow. When the winds strip the paint off your house. Sporadic windstorms from multiple directions. I call that atmospheric chaos. When the jet stream really changes abruptly. And it will change direction. The jet stream is going to change direction. Are you ready for that? Because the dynamics of the earth are such that too much heat in certain locations can absolutely, surely change the jet stream. It's already changed before, then it went back to normal. Do you know what happened last time the jet stream changed? America dried up. That's what happened. The East Coast dried up. Dust storms all over the place. Things dried up. It's going to change again. Hence a horrendous drought. You know what happens in a drought? See, we have done just a foolish thing. Let me tell you what we've done. Through the competitive spirit of trying to gain the most money, we have zapped a very precious resource called water, assuming that we're always going to have water. Well, as of late, they found out that the interior portions of the earth are heating up and the water's been evaporating. The water's steaming out of volcanic vents all over the place, and the magma is moving. That steam, it's actually, that steam is becoming one deep in the earth with high pressure, right? But it's also, an evaporation process has begun. Now look what's happening. All that moisture goes up into the atmosphere. That's where you have the formation of all these large cumulonimbus clouds, and that in combination with more and more molecules condensing in the upper atmospheres is actually changing the composition of the atmosphere itself. Now, there will come a time where it's going to be very difficult to breathe because of the evaporation near water. You will back off the coast yourself. The humidity will overtake you. But if you move just a little bit beyond the humidity, guess what? The dryness will take you over. Those are not good conditions. They will form. The southern hemisphere, right? South Pacific, South Atlantic, Indian Ocean, all those places. There's a heat and cold transfer. So different from what this world is ever used to. It is a conveyor belt for moisture dumping it into the sky. So we have an evaporation event from the south also. There is no accurate picture of the North and South Pole to date. They're using old ones. Why? Because the landscape has changed. No need to report something when you trust the internet. See, when you want to know something, how something looks, first place you know to look is Google Maps, another place like that, right? They update a few locations, you assume the entire globe is updated. See that? And then what? You believe. You believe. They update one place, you believe the whole thing is updated. A sensor shows data which is public on the internet, and thus you take that hook, line, and sinker. Now, some of us have really become clever to compensate for the missing data and come up with the truth anyway. Because you can always come up with the truth if you don't buy the lie presented before you. That's your first step. The atmosphere is changing. Volcanism is ever increasing. There are more active volcanoes now than in a long time, but all of this has happened before. It's going to reach a point to where some of the moist areas in the United States begin to heat up, right? Imagine if Georgia, Alabama, well, parts of Georgia, well, where the water is under the earth, when it comes up, listen to me, I'm going to tell you a story. In South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, parts of Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, there's going to be water coming up from the ground, saturating people's lawns. They're going to say, what in the world is this? Where's this water coming from? You put your finger down there and taste it. It's going to be salty, saltwater intrusion coming into these places. And it's not going to stop rising. It's going to keep coming up until it overtakes the land. Certain places will no longer be livable. It has already permeated into the lower levels. You know why? Because somebody long ago knew that we would begin to dig and mine and do things of that nature. Somebody long ago knew that the water would pour into these places and then saturate the land. There are tunnels riddled underneath the United States like you wouldn't believe, and there are catacombs all throughout the East Coast which are filling up with water. All that water is going in there, and it's coming up inland, all the way in to West Virginia and Ohio from the ocean. And the water level's going up. There's nothing anybody can do about it. Nothing. The other parts that are not being inundated by that saltwater intrusion, right, and other intrusions, you have lots of coal fires underneath the United States. Are you guys aware of this? There are lots of coal fires. So let me ask you this. Some of these coal fires have been burning for like 10, 12 years. Very hot. So when it gets to the point where no vegetation grows, they've shut down neighborhoods. There are abandoned neighborhoods on the East Coast because the ground is so hot. Coal fires won't stop. Foundations are melting. Rock, right? From just heat, the ground is giving way. And the houses are dipping down in the heat. They don't report on them. They got those areas. They're just marked off. Looks like weeds are up, but that's where people used to live. They can't put them out. You can't put out a coal fire, and it's very dangerous to drill down in the ground and try and do anything to it for fear you might hit a gas pocket. So, this extra radiation that's coming in, heating up the entire solar system, coming from these wave events, of which 2004 one did hit from a magnetar. That's what you know that by a magnetar is a good enough source. Am I saying that these waves are caused by a magnetar? No, I'm not. I'm just saying that they observed one with equal magnitude that was twice the distance from the Earth and Mercury, and it still took off the top a piece of our atmosphere. It was not a direct hit. It was far away, and it scooped up part of our atmosphere. That's why they had the ozone troubles in 2006. In 2006, the ozone was at the lowest levels ever recorded. You guys aware of that? That wasn't due to mankind and aerosols either. It didn't have anything to do with aerosols. You remember all the ozone laws and the refrigerant, and they switched from what was it? The regular refrigerant, and then it went to, was that R34 or something like that? I remember vaguely. They started switching over that stuff, saying that, oh, you got to reclaim refrigerant, just can't let it out in the air because it's killing the ozone. You guys remember the ozone wars, right? You guys remember that? 2006, that's when all this stuff happened. Federal laws passed. Reclamation points built. Equipment built where you had to reclaim refrigerant. There's a lot of that stuff was in aircraft too. You didn't have, you can just no longer just leak it out into the air. You had to reclaim it. That was a pain. Aircrafts were redesigned for that, because of that. All right? Then in 2006, they determined something they never published to you, that global warming is not, I repeat, not caused by human behavior, nor is it caused by animal behavior. Because, see, that's when all the data came back from the observer stations. Well, we send our little probes here and there. And Mars is doing just what the Earth is. That's why the ice on Mars is melting. There are no cows up there farting on Mars, are they? I just had to be blunt with that, because didn't they say that global warming started with cow farts or something like that? There are no cows on Mars that we know of. Why are their ice fats melting? It's ice all over Mars, by the way. And it's melting. Liquids coming out of the dirt. It's melting. Who's farming up there? How do those cows get all the way to Mars? Why is Venus heating up? Jupiter heating up? What's that happening? The probe that went all the way out there to Pluto, right? They even suspect now, due to the images that have come back, they didn't share with the public, hey, we got a heating event coming on. Now they're seeing disturbances in the Kuiper Belt. Every object they can get their eyes on that comes by, they're looking for punctures in it. They're looking for the chemical changes. Why? Because something that comes from out there has a radioactive signature of the elements out there. So when they come in here, they want to see what the elements are out there. In other words, they want to see what's coming here to this planet. What elements are we going to have to deal with? So what are they doing, CERN? I know for a fact that one purpose of CERN, amongst the many purposes it has, is to save their own skins. To save their own skins. If they can counteract the effects. You see, a long time ago when they had nuclear weapons, to counteract nuclear weapons, they found out that missile defense it's not going to work out too well. So you have to nullify the effects of the reaction, right? That's what they've been working on. To cause an implosion, to nullify the effects of the reaction. Well, it's been tested and it works. Star Wars popped about and they said, well, we're going to go ahead with Star Wars. It's still going on to this day. But they said, well, we're going to have to come up with a different way to nullify the effects of a nuclear weapon. The explosion, they agreed, is okay. It's tactical, strategic. But the results of a nuclear weapon are not okay. Because the fact is, one explosion overseas can affect us over here. If any explosions take place based on the dynamics of the atmosphere, the northern hemisphere will effectively be poisoned. That's where it's going to be pushed to, the northern hemisphere. It's going to follow the activity of the clouds and the jet stream. So to set one off overseas, it'll eventually work its way around back to us. Why? Because when they explode and they let off the radioactive particles in the atmosphere itself. That's why. And it gets caught up in the stratosphere, carried around the globe. If something happens on the ground and it does not go up into the air, well, it's containable. It's containable. And why are they not talking about Fukushima? Where'd that go? Everybody stopped talking about Fukushima. All at the same time. Have you noticed? At first, Fukushima was going to kill everything in the ocean. Now nobody's talking about Fukushima. How in the world did they program people to forget about that? Because they bombard you with information and take your attention off of things. We, as a species, have a short attention span. It takes a bulldog to stay on top of a subject like that, but even they get discouraged by not having the findings they're looking for. Because they themselves cannot go to those places and inspect. Thus, they lose interest. Has it damaged parts of the ocean? You better believe it. Have they buried some of the rods underneath the ocean? You better believe it. Sunk those, they sunk them down in there. They did. But they're stifling the mouths of everybody who really wants to discuss Fukushima. And now we have a greater, see, there will be another Fukushima caused by terrorists. I hope you're ready for that. 2 Fukushimas will be caused by terrorists. And it won't be by a tsunami. It'll be by people. We'll have more Fukushimas. That's going to come by way of terrorists in the war. And they're going to take full advantage of any problems in the atmosphere to do what they have to do. full advantage. Why? Because with these waves comes a mindset change of everybody on the face of the earth. Listen to me. One trigger. One trigger. If you have people walking around the earth doubting everything, one trigger, one glimpse into something they never ever thought that would ever happen makes every other fear in their minds all too real. When this happens, a psychological effect will encompass the globe. People are not ready like you think they're ready. They're not. People are still surprised when they find out somebody lied to them. So if they're ready for the bigger things, why are they so surprised the world's torn apart by someone's foolish lie? Telling you they're not ready. Because they're not ready before this event takes place, you're going to see more and more activities in the cities. Military activities in the cities. Why? That's simple containment. That's containment. Is it mingled in with the election? I guess you could say that. It certainly creates a standby, but it's the minds. See, if people were controlled, there'd be no need for containment. What's happening is a loss of control. Now, if the heavens if something in the heavens demonstrated to you and made you think that surely death is coming to a lot of places on earth, that you can't contain anybody's mind anymore, because people would say, well, I'm done with this. You're done with listening to them. You got to protect your own family. And people would begin to take matters into their own hands. Small communities would then group together because they would have no other choice than to believe, because, first of all, nobody told them. Nobody told them. And NASA and the European Space Agency are going to run out of time lying about everything. Here's how they lie. They don't tell you. They're not sharing a falsehood. They just simply don't tell you. Or they don't comment on it. And they let other people comment on them. Or they have the people who are sincere kept out of the know, saying, well, we didn't know anything. But that's no longer working. Have you guys noticed it's no longer working? Why? Because something in you is waking up, and not by your own power. It has nothing to do with you. Everything to do with the shifting and the changing elements in the earth. Do you not know? Let me give you an example of the elements, just so you understand, because these elements are coming into our solar system. Listen, if somebody gave you a tranquilizer, what's going to happen to you? Can you think clearly with a tranquilizer? No. If somebody pumped you full of drugs, you'd start laughing, hallucinating, and doing everything. Right? Why? Because they're changing the chemical composition of your body. Correct? Am I right or wrong? When you have the feel-good feeling, all of those who've been wounded or something like that, and they injected you with morphine, your body's flooding itself with the pleasure centers. Your endorphins are released all throughout your body. Then you start feeling good and laughing and everything else. You don't care about the pain. I'm telling you, there are exotic elements that can do just that. It is known, not a mystery, what most particles coming in will do to your body, and they know full well it's going to cause people to go insane. If they give you a hallucinogen, you will not be able to determine what is real and what is not. And folks, I'm telling you, that's nothing more than a chemical. What is a chemical? A bonding of agents in a different form. All the chemicals in these drugs and everything else, they're always all over the place. They artificially bind them in different combinations and then come up with a new chemical. Folks, you got to understand this. But there's a natural process by which these things can happen through radiation. They will rebond and do things weird. And mankind is going to lose their minds. The stationary point of your mind in the first place is the magnetosphere. Without the magnetosphere, your neurological connections are going to begin to break, and you're not going to have a memory of the person beside you. You will not have a memory. Your memory will be the first to go. You won't know who's in your own household, and you will be paranoid. Listen to me. If your neurological connections break, and you held your infant on your lap, when they do break at the core that they're going to break, you're going to look at that infant not knowing whose infant that is or what it is. You may not know what it is. And you may kill it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is this backed up by Scripture? You better believe it. Because didn't the Bible say that a man will look at his brother and kill him right there on the spot? They wouldn't know who the person to the left or the right is. And that is an effect of a collapse of the magnetosphere. Can it collapse in certain portions of the earth? Yes, it can. They will turn to their brother and kill him. That's in the scriptures. See, while people are playing around, they got the half-truth and the feel-good truth. They forgot about those parts. These are the parts of the Word of God that nobody wants to listen to because they say, well, that just can't happen. That's why they couldn't see the Son of Man coming with all their wisdom and all their understanding and all their being in tune with the law. They couldn't see the Word of God speaking with them. How foolish has man become? And yet again, we become foolish, believing in our own resolve and denying the truth. To believe in what you have resolved is to deny the truth. So will many things take mankind by surprise. But now is the time to prepare in truth. So I'm going to take a short break, and when I come back, we're going to go through some real preparations so that you can be aware of some of the effects that are going to take place. As sure as you're listening to me, a lot of you will have to endure them. Not everybody, because some people are going to die off long before this comes. We're talking about things that are going to happen prior to the coming of Christ. Just like in World War I, you know how many people thought the rapture was coming then? Lots. World War II, you know how many people just knew the rapture was coming? Lots. The Gulf War, first one, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, you know how many people thought the rapture was coming? Lots. It didn't come. The second time, they said, surely the rapture is coming right now, and it did not. See, what I'm telling you is that people had to endure this. They had to endure the Great Depression. They had to endure slaughters in the countries, the Holocaust, things of that nature. Whether you believe in that or not, the world endured calamities. And yet again, we're going to have to endure a calamity. But all those who trusted and stayed within the Lord, if they had a fate, it was very different from those who did not believe. Those who gave their time and goodness of the Lord's word to somebody else, that somebody else may benefit from the truth. Their lives were enriched. Yes, they went through the Great Depression, but did you notice your grandparents lived longer than the people live today? Did you notice how rich of the soul they were? Why? Because they were forced to endure, and therefore they gripped onto the spiritual things. But this calamity coming is a close of the cycle. Now, please don't buy the lie, well, this is just a natural cycle, and then after this, everything restarts. No, it's not. This is it. Prior to this time, Christ did not come. Christ has been here now. This is it, the end of the cycle. The end of the cycle. This is it. This is your one chance. These events that are coming, either you're going to be prepared or not prepared. But when you see them, it is my hope you know what to do. It is truly my hope that as you see these events, your relationship with the Lord will be worked out quickly. Because some of you will still not believe until the events take place, which is also biblical. It was already stated biblical that some people could not believe. They said, well, when I see it, I'll straighten up this or that. And then when it came, it overtook them as a thief in the night. They had no prep time. Are you going to have prep time? Because today is your day of preparation, folks. I'm going to be back. And then it's going to get a little creepy, but I'll be back. Be right back.